Hi, this is Sue again from Port of Grace Caregiver Support. And today I'm going to talk about preventing pressure ulcers. I remember when I was a little girl and I heard of an old man and they said he died of bed sores. I just thought, what is a bed sore and how can you die from such a thing? Later on, after I was a nurse and had a better idea about this, Christopher Reeve died. He played Superman in the first Superman movies, and he fell off a horse and he broke his neck. And eventually, after a bunch of years, he died. And on the news, they would say that he died of pressure ulcer or he died of a bed sore. I'm thinking it was probably an infection that actually is why he died. But my point is that pressure ulcers are serious. And they are caused by, guess what? Pressure. If the person is in bed in the same position, putting pressure on the hips or on the heels or on the tailbone for, they say 2 hours, you can get a pressure ulcer in 2 hours. That's how they're caused by the pressure between the surface they're on, the bed or the wheelchair or whatever, and the bones that are, so the body is pushing down on the bone and causing pressure on the skin between the surface and the bone. The best thing to do is to just not let those happen. So first of all, you need to determine if the person that you care for is even at risk for getting pressure ulcers. Maybe they're not, and you can turn this video off. Are they able to move around easily? Walking, sitting, standing, moving in bed, can they do that? If they can't, they are at risk for pressure ulcers. The second thing is, are they in bed or in a wheelchair most of the time? If they are at risk for pressure ulcers. And then, can the person you care for feel sensation everywhere in their body? That is, if you touch their feet, can they feel that? A lot of times, if a person is diabetic, they completely lose sensation in their feet. Or if somebody had a stroke, they lose sensation in different areas of their body. So that's good to keep in mind. Also, if they've had a spinal cord injury and have paralysis and can't feel, they are at risk for pressure ulcers. Other things are nutritional status. Do they eat a well-balanced diet with a lot of green vegetables, and protein? Hydration status. They should have at least 1.5 quarts of fluid every day. Water, other things like soup and popsicles and jello, they all count toward the fluids. Unless they're on a fluid restriction, then whatever that fluid restriction is, you follow that, of course. Also, are they incontinent of bowel and or bladder? That can cause the skin to be very susceptible to breaking down. So, you determine that your person is at risk. What do you do to prevent pressure ulcers from occurring? First of all, you need to make sure the person changes position every 2 hours if they're in bed, or every hour if they're in a wheelchair. You or them need to change the position. They don't have to be big changes, just enough to remove the pressure from one area and put it in another area. For example, if the person is in bed and they are on their side and they're kind of leaning back on the pillows, you can just pull the pillows out a little bit, and that is a position change. Also, they can totally, if possible, if they can do this safely, they can get out of bed and get up in a chair and sit up for meals. This does a lot of good things all at once. Um, it puts the pressures in different areas of the body for that time. It helps prevent choking, helps prevent them from spilling on themselves. And it's good for the whole person to get out of bed. It's good for the skin, it's good for the lungs, it's good for the circulation, good for digestion, and it's good for their mental outlook. And it's a good time for you to change the sheets if that's what needs to be done. So that is about position changes. Also, you need to keep their heels entirely off the bed all the time. Also, off the recliner if that's where they want to sit. You can do that by placing pillows under their calves lengthwise, or you can use some sort of a boot. There are a lot of different kinds, and I tend to like one that's called a Heelift suspension boot. I'll link that below. But once you go to the link, you'll see that there are a lot of options. And I think that's the easiest. It's easier than trying to keep the pillows there all the time because people move around and the pillows don't stay where they belong. So, okay, and the next thing is getting a pressure redistribution surface. So, what is that? That is something that helps keep the pressures off. Well, it spreads out the pressure is what it does so that it's not all on the hip or all on the tailbone. I'm going to tell you some examples. There are three types that are easy for you to get. Uh, the first kind is you've probably seen egg crate, those blue egg crate mattresses they have in the hospital. The ones in the hospitals are usually not the greatest because they need to be thicker. If you're really going to use it for pressure ulcer prevention, it needs to be at least 4 inches thick at the dips in the egg crate. Then it will work as a pressure redistribution surface. Otherwise, people bottom out and it just doesn't work to prevent pressure ulcers. Another thing that's very popular these days is memory foam overlays. Those should be at least 3 inches thick. And if the person is heavier, it should be 4 inches thick. And they do work well. I've heard some really good stories about people who just, even without anyone telling them they should do it, they went out and got memory foam overlays for the person they're caring for, and it really helps and works for them. Another thing that's a little more techy is to use an alternating pressure overlay. That is a mattress that's made out of plastic and it has tubes in it of air. So here you have two tubes going through all over the place. There are these tubes, and one tube will be full of air, and then after a while they trade, and then the other tube is full of air instead. And that way it redistributes the pressure. However, even if you get some of these helpful things, you still have to turn, reposition, and keep the heels off the bed. It doesn't replace doing those things. Okay. So another thing is to not slide the person across the bed. And this is where draw sheets come in. Draw sheets are a wonderful thing. They are a sheet that is smaller so you have the regular sheet on the bed. Then a draw sheet is a smaller sheet that goes kind of between the shoulders and the knees of the person. And you can use that to reposition them, to move them. So when you slide, if you pull the draw sheet to move a person to the side of the bed, you're not dragging the person across the bed and causing friction injury. You're going to be drawing the sheet over the other sheet instead of the person over the sheet. It's very hard to explain how to use this without a demonstration, so I've linked a video below that will show you a good demonstration of using a draw sheet and of positioning people, repositioning people. So another thing is, if the person is in a hospital bed, don't put the head of the bed up higher than 30 degrees unless they're eating. The reason for that is that if it's higher than 30 degrees, it causes something called shearing force. So shearing force is, here's the bed, here's the person. People slide down. The thing is that when people slide, their bones and muscles and innards slide and their skin sticks to the sheet. And that can cause a tremendous amount of pressure in the low back right above the tailbone. You want to avoid that. And you avoid that by not putting the head of the bed up greater than 30 degrees unless they are eating. And remember what I said about eating. It's a good time to put a person in a chair. I also talked about nutrition and hydration and incontinence, and I'm going to make separate videos about those things. I want to also leave you with two big don'ts. The first one is don't massage reddened areas. So you go to turn somebody and you see that there's a red area. Leave it alone. Don't massage it. You can cause more damage by doing that. I'll tell you, when I was in nursing school many moons ago, that's exactly what we learned to do. We learned that if there was a red area, we were supposed to get the lotion and massage that area. Well, now they have learned, don't do that. The other thing is, don't use donut devices. You think that you want to use a donut device, say, because they have a tailbone injury or something, and you want to keep the pressure off. Actually, what you end up doing is cutting off the circulation to the area that you're trying to protect. And if they don't have good circulation, then there's no nutrients going to the wound to heal it, no waste products being taken away, or at least it's greatly decreased, and you end up causing more harm than good. So just don't use donut devices. So what if the person that you care for already has a pressure ulcer? Beyond the scope of any of the videos that I'm making to tell you how to treat pressure ulcers. But if the person you care for has something that's worse than what can be managed with a Band-Aid, you need to get a hold of the doctor, and possibly they can do telemedicine, or they can have a home health nurse. In fact, you can ask them to have a home health nurse come out and look at that wound, and then they can communicate with the doctor and make a plan for healing the wound. But treatment is beyond the scope of this, and it's beyond the scope probably of what you want to be doing too. Don't wait to call the doctor if there's any question. So now I want to know how you are doing. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, you can leave them. In fact, if you have any wonderful ideas, I learned some of the best ideas from patients. So if you have any great ideas in the way that you care for the person you care for, please leave them in the comments below. I would love to see that, and I will communicate with you. If this has been helpful, please hit the big red button down below, and then hit the little gray bell down below, and you will be notified every time I post a new video. And for today, may God bless you, keep you, and strengthen you.